Hello, hello, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad you could join us tonight for Versed Workshop 1. Um, Please pay attention to the chat where we just put in some housekeeping things. Q&As need to go in the Q&A box. They're not going to be seen in the chat. And please just be respectful in there. It's all in the chat. Our beautiful moderator, Claire, has put in sort of the ground rules, some housekeeping. Feel free to put where you're in from the Bay, rep where you are, and welcome. So thank you. I'm Sam Bimpong. I'm one of the lead producers for the Bay List. For those who don't know, the Bay List started as a creative collaboration between Rafael Casal and the Blacklist founder, Franklin Leonard. Casal was looking to find a way to highlight his community and uplift diverse Bay stories. Together with some incredible partners, they have designed a program to showcase 10 extraordinary projects coming out of the region. I'm sure you all have seen the list of partners the Bay shows up. If you haven't, check out thebaylist.org. But we're here tonight really because BAVC, who is one of our partners in this work, wanted to had a conversation with us about how do we make sure that the Bay puts their best foot forward? What tools can we give you? We know you have stories, we know you're talented, but how can we give you the tools to really show up for the Bay List with your best scripts, with your best, most professional self forward? So we are doing this series of 3 workshops. Thank you to BAVC for hosting this and coordinating it all. Thank you for the Blacklist for saying yes when we talked about doing this. So with that, I'm just going to pass it to Paula. She is the executive director of BAVC and a Wonder Woman, and I will let her kick us off.
Thank you, Sam. I think you are Wonder Woman, so thank you so much. Like Sam said, I'm Paula Smith-Aragoni. I'm the executive director of BAVC Media, and I just want to also extend all of the thanks to the incredible team that is behind the Blacklist and the Bay List. We're so excited to be a part of the founding team. And I also just want to thank the Robertson Family Foundation, who is sponsoring this series of training sessions and awareness sessions. Just as a little intro, we know that the Bay is home to so many incredible writers and literary organizations, and from all kinds of communities and disciplines. We hope that through this initiative, we'll see more local screenwriters advance their stories and careers. And really, emerging storytelling is what we're all about at BAVC. BAVC, just as a little bit more of an intro, we are a hub for indie media education, production, and preservation. We have classes for youth and adults, career support programs like apprenticeships, community events in partnership with groups like BAMS, Film SF, and Make It Bay. And we also operate San Francisco community media channels. Next, my colleague Isa is going to share a couple more highlights. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I see some heavy hitters in the chat. Bay Area represent. My name is Isa Nakazawa. I am the Director of Community Media at BAVC. And just echoing Paula, we're just so grateful that you're all spending time here and hope that this is useful. I'm just providing some brief context on what Media Maker VERSED is, which is the umbrella program. So this is really a series of artist development workshops. We pioneered the program around 2 years ago, and it's really just a hybrid of workshops, hands-on labs, virtual and in-person offerings for media makers of all skill levels to spark and sustain careers in the media arts on a free or below market basis. We've done so many different programs around different themes, from audio for filmmaking, DIY art films, how to make a work sample, and our most recent offering was around the ethics of Gen AI in documentary filmmaking, facilitated by the incredible folks at the Archival Producers Alliance. So we'll be having 2 subsequent Bay List offerings forthcoming, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, we're just really honored. Just a brief full circle moment. I worked at Youth Speaks, where Rafael Casal was also an alum, and where I met Paula. So it just feels like a very Bay Area moment tonight. And with that said, I'm going to kick it off to one of the stars of the show, Sam, for more intros. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Shout out to Youth Speaks. We love Youth Speaks. We love arts programming. So I'm going to just pass it to the man of the hour, a man who needs no introduction, Franklin Leonard. He is the founder and CEO of The Blacklist. He has literally changed the game. And I will let him give you kind of kick it off with an overview.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sam, for the intro, and thank you to BAVC and everyone who is here. Happy Wednesday, y'all, amidst a very weird time in the world. What I thought I would do to start, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the blacklist and how it functions, and then really just answer your questions about the blacklist, about screenwriting, about the industry, really whatever questions you have. And I think we have, not mistaken, 2 hours to do that. So I'll try to make this part of it relatively relatively quick. There's a lot of information on the history of the blacklist online. You can find that there. I thought what I would do is just jump in and explain roughly how we see the world, how we think about things, why the blacklist exists, and then I'm going to hand it off to members of the blacklist team to talk about how it functions in practice and how to use the website. So here's the basic idea. The fundamental thinking behind the website is that out in the world, everywhere in the world, there are great writers. And there are more great writers than any one person could reasonably read in the course of a year or probably a lifetime. And then on the flip side of that, within the industry, in film and television and theater and in publishing, everybody wants quality material desperately. That is the lifeblood of all of these industries. But the nature of what quality is also inherently subjective. Two people can disagree on whether something's great. Just think about some of the Oscar movies this year, and neither of them are necessarily wrong as long as they're entering into the conversation in good faith. The problem is that the way the industries historically have gone about finding material is really archaic. And it really isn't built for the information age or the digital age at all. I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with this issue over the course of your careers, but if you ask somebody in Hollywood, historically, how do I become a professional screenwriter? How can I get my work read? You're likely to hear one of two answers. And the first answer is to enter the Nickel Fellowship, which is the Academy Screenwriting Competition, which unquestionably for the last 3 decades has been the best screenwriting competition, at least in the US marketplace. And the other is, move to LA, get a job at Starbucks, network until someone pays attention to you. And, I grew up in West Central Georgia. I didn't even really think about working in Hollywood until I was long after college and happened to know a few people who already did work in the business. But just because you can't afford to move to LA doesn't mean you're not a good writer. And in fact, I'll take somebody who can't necessarily afford to move to LA on their own dime over somebody who can, just as a rough guess based on my experience. And here's the thing, the organization of the world where you're required to move to LA and network until someone pays attention to you is bad for writers, because if you have talent, you can't get easily discovered. But it's even worse for the industry, because we as the industry are missing out on all of the amazing talent that exists all around the world. I've used this analogy before. I think it holds pretty well. But imagine if the NBA, the National Basketball Association, told people who wanted to be professional basketball players, you know what? Our headquarters are in New York City. Move to New York, play pickup ball at courts near our offices, and someone will probably see you, and then we'll assign you to a team. I dare say that if all of the rosters in the NBA were filled with people who were personally known to the owners of the team, it's not likely any of us would be watching basketball. But that's a little bit like what Hollywood has been historically. It's who you know, not how good you are on the page. And the blacklist exists largely to try to address that issue. If you're a writer and you're trying to get your work to people, you're probably trying to get your work to people via personal relationships or your representatives. And that's great if you have reps. And if you're not a writer, you're probably trying to find material via personal relationships, via agents and managers sending you their work. But there's no way for you to find exactly what you're looking for. And the blacklist exists to be the solution between those two parties. On one side, you have writers submitting their work, getting feedback on their work. And if the work is good, we start to tell everybody in Hollywood, hey, there's this really good thing, you should do something with it. And on the other side, if you're a working professional in the film, television, theater, or publishing business, you can go on the Blacklist website and find great work of any sort or exactly what you're looking for. So if you're in a meeting and an A-list actor says, I'd really love to find an action movie set in Western Europe, boom, you can go search for that. If someone says, I'd really love to find a thriller set in South Korea, you can go search for that. And as you can imagine, by creating a marketplace like that, it's better for everybody. It allows writers who have great talent and great material to get found by people who can do something with it. And it allows people who are making things and have the resources to get them made to find good things that are worth the considerable investment of time and money that's necessary to get them made. And that's what the Blacklist website is. I'm going to bring up the Blacklist team now. If they could just pop up on the screen. We got Shelby Covat and Lillian Bedoin. Is it Bedoin or Bedouin? Sorry, I always screw up that pronunciation.
No, it's neither. It's Bodwin.
Bodwin. Okay, there we go.
Option C.
This is what happens when you work in the cloud and don't actually work in an office with people. But I'm going to hand it off to them right now to walk everybody through the website. And then we'll just answer questions if that works for everybody.
Yeah.
Shelby, Lillian, I'll leave it to you.
Hi, everyone. I am Shelby. I am the manager of writer development at the Blacklist. So I oversee the community of writers and filmmakers who have been through our programs. I also oversee our professional pool of readers, and I'm responsible for industry membership and outreach, which involves relationships with anyone from academies to guilds to production companies and individual executives and reps. And so I'm going to take you all through the industry side of our website just so you can see what that looks like. And I'll let Lillian introduce herself before I go into that.
Thanks, Shelby. I'm Lillian Bodwin. I am our director of CX. So that's customer experience, which means that I am managing our support team, which is small but mighty. And contrary to a lot of other organizations, we are a fully human team. So if you ever have a question or are running into an issue, please let us know. We want to solve it for you, but also be nice because they're very good people too. And aside from that, I kind of help streamline and answer questions around our site and how it works and how you can use it and use it to your advantage in the best way. I don't think I need to say more than that. So Shelby, I'll hand it over to you.
Absolutely. Lillian is a true resource for anything you possibly want to know about the site. But let's get started. I'm going to share my screen now. And here we go. So this is what the website looks like when you log in as an industry member. This is just my personal regular industry member account. This is the dashboard, and it is kind of the home base for everything. And when you navigate to it, you'll see the featured scripts for the month flashing at the front, and we actually just got these up today. So you're getting a sneak peek here. These scripts for these month are quick reads, which are scripts that are 90-page featured scripts to honor the shortest month of the year after what was a very long January. So we thought people would enjoy this. So we can click through some of these here. You can also see our featured projects all listed if you go to the left-hand navigation here. And we'll see we do them in batches of 3s. So we also get someone to design a poster set for each one of these, and they look great. So we have different themes. We had winter holiday themed. We had a suitable for family and children themed in November, horror for October, back to school in September, and we had sports in August and so on. So going back, we can take a look at one of these. This is what a script page looks like. It gives basic information about the script, how many evaluations it's had, what the writer is, genre, time period, location. You put in the log line yourself, and as writers, I encourage you all to fill out as much information as there is so that industry members who are looking can then gauge as much information as possible. You'll be able to put in your information about your representation if you have any. And then you can also choose to show this. You also don't have to show this if you don't want to, but a projection of how your script has scored compared to the average scores of other scripts that have been evaluated. You also are able to tag your scripts. We have hundreds of tags that you can use to apply to your script, which also are very useful for industry members to use when they're searching for your scripts. And then down here, we have character descriptions, which are also amazingly useful for industry members when they are, for example, searching for a role for a specific actor or actress. So I also encourage you to always fill these out and fill out the script page to its full potential. We will also, you can also see that to read a screenplay, if you want to click on it, it can be sent to someone's Kindle, it can be emailed to someone, you can read it right on the site. And Franklin can speak to this further, but if you have any concerns about security, we have the utmost security on the site. Everything is marked digitally imprinted, every one of the PDFs, so we keep track of where everything goes and nothing can be shared beyond our knowledge. We also have here where you can view the evaluations that this project has received. So going down here, you can see what an evaluation looks like. And so we have the log line, the strengths, weaknesses, and prospects for this script. And this one has gotten quite a few very positive reviews, and that's why they've chosen to make these all public. You can make any evaluations that you receive either public or private. So you can choose which ones you want the public to see and which ones you do not want them to see. That's all up to you. And this is also where industry members can contact you. So they can send you a message through the site. So we encourage everyone to have that available so that you can be reached, but we also encourage you to put your contact information on your script page itself, so people can contact you directly. Moving on, we go back to the dashboard and we see that we see the top screenplays and trending screenplays, and mine is currently set to features, but we can toggle between any formats that we like. So on the blacklist, we have screenplays, pilots, theater projects, which are plays and musicals. And then our newest addition as of September is manuscripts. So for all of these, you can go down and you can see the top projects and the trending projects for these formats, as well as whatever you have personally previously downloaded and previously viewed. And that also will show up right here, just so you can keep track of everything that you personally have been doing. And then we also have this favoriting system. So for example, if I looked at this and wanted to keep it for later, I could press the heart button here or on the script page and save it in either my favorite scripts or create a collection for it and add it to that collection. And it has been saved for ease. Then what is really exciting and what is very applicable for all of you as writers is our search function. We also use recommendations, and we recommend projects to people based on, what they have been looking at previously, and we'll have things pop up there based on what they've been, reading and looking at and rating before. But our search is what's really exciting. You can search either by projects or by writers. So if you're searching in projects, as Franklin mentioned earlier, you can get very specific. You can search by format, by genre, and by tag. You can search by era, by location. And you can search if there's already, to see if there's a project maybe with a director already attached or with no attachments. And here's why I encourage everyone to list the characters for their script, because this is where you can also search, say, I want any character that has a, woman who is any race and who is from 25 to 45, if I'm looking for a certain role. You can always reset your filters. Now, you can also search for writer details. If you're looking for a specific writer, that's why Lillian will take you through the writer profiles, but I encourage you to put as much information as you can there as well. And you can also, as you see here, click available for download, which will show you anything that is already on the site, which means it's actively hosted and you can read it right away. But if you unclick that, you see everything that is listed on the site, which means that the writer has provided all of the details for it, but does not have it actively hosted on the site, which is free to do. So it's still important to get all of your stuff listed on the site so that when somebody is searching for something, you still have a chance of it coming up in their search. For example, we can also do free language search. I always love to search dance competition and see what we have in that world. This is some of my favorite stuff to read. So you can see we have, 14 scripts about this that are listed on the site. If I want to see what I can read right now, it goes down to 2, but there's still some great stuff to read on that. And then if you want to search writers in particular, you can go to writers, and here you see the profiles of all the writers that are on the site. Very exciting. And you can kind of click around into them and, explore. I will give you an example of what a writer profile looks like from the industry side. This is one of our writers who has, been on the blacklist and has done quite a few other things. So she lists her management company as a nickel quarter finalist achievement. You can message her through the site. You can also see her IMDb page. She has a full biography filled out, and she can link out to her, social media channels, her personal website, and then you can see like whatever script she has also on the site. Yeah, and then anything else from this side, I think the only other thing would be you can see that there is a if you go just to the blacklist site over here, and you go to writers, you can see our public writer profile directory. And this means that you can see that these writers have their profiles available to be viewed by the public, so that you do not have to be an industry member to see all of these. And you can kind of use this as a writer, as your home base for listing all of your projects, listing your biography, listing all of your credits, and kind of use this as your own personal website. So I will kind of stop there and see if we have any questions about the industry side of things. And then if not, I will let Lillian show you how everything works from the writer side.
Cool. I think there are a couple more like specific questions about representation and privacy and security.
Yes, representation. Yeah, we have had, varying levels of success with people getting representation from using the site. We usually like to promote those on social media. And we always love when people tell us about when they get representation from the site. But yes, we also, when a writer does well on the site, which means they get, when they do astoundingly well by getting a score of 8 or above on an evaluation, which we have about a 3.5% rate of an evaluation getting a score of 8 or above. We blast that out to everyone in our industry membership and on social media, to let everyone know that this writer has done an amazing job. And we also give that writer more free evaluations because we want them to continue being able to have their work kind of reviewed. And if you have something that great, our thought is it should only, you should only have to pay for it to be reviewed once. And we want you to continue to get traction from it.
I was muted. I popped up very quickly there was the question about cost, which I think Shelby's partially answered. It's $30 a month to host. It's free to create a writer profile and list your work. $30 a month per piece of material to host your work. It's $100 for a screenplay, hour-long pilot, $150 for a fiction manuscript. Our readers get paid with 60 plus bonuses. Is that right, Shelby? Can you confirm for features?
Yes. So readers get paid $60 a project plus bonuses.
Plus bonuses, and our fiction readers get paid $100 for reading a 90 to 100 page manuscript plus bonuses. We sort of backed into that. The idea is basically if you were reading 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, you basically make between 55 and 60K a year, possibly more depending on how well and how quickly you read. I think Shelby's point also about the free hosting and free feedback when you get high scores is a really important one. If you submit your script, it gets a high score, again, 8 plus overall. That's 3.5% of the feedback we provided historically. If you get an 8 plus score, you get free hosting and more free evaluations. If any of those evaluations is an 8 plus score, guess what? More free hosting, more free evaluations, potentially in an endless loop. Once you get 5 8s, we're like, okay, we get it. This is very clearly very good. And then we give it, sort of special visibility on the site, which should drive even more traffic to the script. And again, you're privy to all of your traffic, but I think Lillian will show you that. There was also a question about pirating and theft on the site, which I just wanted to jump in and try to address now. Here's the thing. People aren't looking to steal a good script, because the reality is it's a heck of a lot easier to buy a good script than it is to steal it and open yourself up to significant legal considerations, right? So it's not a real animating factor in reality for most of this business. However, we live in an age where scripts are sent mainly via email. And when you send a script via email, you have no idea where it goes after that, right? If I send it to somebody, they can send it to 100, 1,000, 10,000 people without me even knowing about it. One of the differences between sending your script via email to somebody and hosting it on the blacklist is that my co-founder, our CTO, Dina Simone, literally comes from the world of digital security. There are any number of things embedded in the PDF that will allow us to know who downloaded it when they downloaded it, and who it was that did so. That will still not prevent us from being able to prevent them from emailing it. But we have a record of everything that has ever been downloaded, viewed, etc. on the website. And so we're a far safer environment for your work than literally any other environment where you're going to send it. And that's by design. I'm going to disappear again, but I'll be back to answer more questions later. See you soon.
And I'm going to also interject here and just say that the Bay List has a mind to equity, and we don't want there to be barriers to entry. And Dolby has generously stepped up and is providing fee waivers for those who cannot afford the fee. So we do think that if you can't afford the fee, $30 is totally reasonable, and it allows writers to get paid. We need people to get paid. Artists are often expected to do free labor. So please only use those fee waivers if you really have a barrier to entry. And like I said, Dolby stepped up and made sure that that is not going to be an issue if you're applying into the Bay List.
You know what? I'm popping back up just to sort of speed run through some of the other questions that have come up. So I think they probably fit under the same sort of umbrella as some of these. Has this been proven as a way to get representation? Short answer is yes. We wouldn't have been around for the last 12 years if we hadn't. The first writer to actually get signed got signed at CAA and Management 360 about 6 weeks after we launched back in 2012. It happens often enough that people don't even bother to tell us. And I'd say that every year when the annual blacklist comes out, there are between a dozen and 20 writers who are on the annual list who got discovered by their reps via the blacklist website. Do I have any data to share on how many scripts have been picked up from the blacklist in 2024? I don't have any on 2024, though some of them have. I can say, historically speaking, about a third of the movies that have been on the annual blacklist, so about 500 films have been produced. They've made about 30 billion in worldwide box office. They've won 50 Oscars from 300 nominations, including and won 4 Best Picture awards and 11 screenwriting Oscars since 2007. And Harvard Business School did a study on the blacklist, the annual list, 5 years ago, and found that movies made from scripts on the list make about 90% more in revenue than movies made from scripts not on the list, controlling for all their factors. I want to be very clear when I cite all those numbers. We didn't make those movies, right? Like, we didn't produce them, direct them, gaff them, do craft service on them, and we can't take credit for the quality of those movies, nor would we. What we can take credit for is building a metal detector, the annual list, and now the website, to find the great things that when talented people pour into them, good things happen. Are there metrics tied to the number of evaluation that converts into a script being picked up? No, there really aren't. But this is also why if you get a high score on your first evaluation, we give you more free evaluations. And if any of those evaluations get high scores, you get more free evaluations. You shouldn't have to pay more to get consideration if you have good work. Your opportunity should be correlated with the quality of the thing and not the number of evaluations that you can afford to purchase. We'll talk about the Bayless process a little bit more after Lillian's had a chance to go through the site. I just wanted to buzz through all of these questions really quickly before we jump to that. Lillian, all you.
Thanks, y'all. Okay. So I am about to share my screen and kind of hop into what you're going to be seeing as a writer. So just as a refresher, Shelby showed us what you see as an industry member. And as a reminder, all of our industry members are vetted by the team. So it's not just an open, like they sign up and they're automatically approved. So it's a very specific kind of membership that are going to have access to the PDFs that you upload for your projects. So I'm going to walk you through onboarding. So that's signing up as a writer. And then I'm also going to walk you through what it looks like to upload a project and add it to your dashboard. And then we might touch on a couple other specific things that sometimes come up. But otherwise, the rest of the time we can just spend really digging into questions about how the site works and how we can best utilize it for you to make it work for you. So without further ado, okay. So we're going to start from square one, right? Coming to the site, if you want to sign up and you do not have a writer membership with us yet, you're going to click the sign up link. You're going to go over to the writer side, register as a writer. Let's say my name is Writer. We are going to use this email address. You're going to confirm that you're at least 18. If you're not 18 yet, please continue writing and then come back to us when you are, and we'll make sure that we get you signed up as a writer. All right. After that happens, check your email. Here we go. Confirm. All right. So from here, I think one of the biggest issues that sometimes happens is that writers will click on that link in their inbox, get to this page, and then get up and say that they'll come back to it and then close out the window. When you do that, that means you haven't completed the onboarding, and sometimes you can have trouble logging back in. So it's not a very, very long onboarding process, but we really recommend you just kind of move through it. So autofill some of this information. We're just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. Nook Lane, that's fun. Let's say, yep. Boston, California, why not? Here we go. If you're a guild member, you can add that now, but it's not required. So we're going to skip this. Here's where you're going to start filling out the information that shows up in that writer profile that Shelby showed you. You can choose to make it public, and that means that anybody who visits the Blacklist website, whether or not they're a member, will have limited visibility into what you share about yourself. So basically this information right here. You can also choose to make it visible to only other Blacklist members. So that's going to be other writer members, other industry members, and students, or just varying other degrees of private based on that. So let's say everybody. Here's our handle. Keep in mind that that handle is part of your URL. So if you do decide to share your profile with folks in the industry, that will be visible to them. So I recommend trying to keep it as professional as possible. If you'd like to choose to upload a photo, you can do that there. There's also accomplishments that you can add, so notable works. There are staffing level. This tends to be most useful if you've been working pretty consistently. So we've got things like co-exec producers, showrunners, staff writers, things like that. Additional experience. So I find this really, really useful. If you've got like a ton of experience in geology, like you come from a geology background, and that informs your work, that's incredible for folks who are looking for writers that are working in that space or have that experience to know. So I always encourage adding that. And then achievements. There's a lot you can choose from here. We've tried to help make it a little clearer based on what format the achievement is connected to. So if any of those are relevant to you, you can choose them. And then we have a robust social links section as well. So you can go through and add any of these that are relevant or that are useful for you or that you want connected to that public profile. Same with representation. We've got film and TV reps, theater reps, and then literary reps. Again, none of this is required. And you can also add this at any time. So we'll hit next. Oh, great. Okay. Okay, so this is where you can also choose to fill out demographic information. Again, if you want your writer profile to be searchable for our industry members, it's super helpful if you fill out this information. We also require this information to be filled out if you decide to apply for a general fee waiver. There are 2 types of fee waivers associated with the blacklist. So there's general fee waivers, which every single writer is eligible to apply for each year. And there's also program fee waivers. So like Sam was mentioning for the Bay List, there are a limited number of fee waivers available for that program. We frequently want to offer programs and work with our partners who are able to cover fee waivers for writers that otherwise wouldn't be able to access evaluations just because of the cost. So let's say woman, birth year is important. So let's say 1988. Randomly choosing things. Any of this you can choose, and you can choose to use it in search filtering or keep it private. If you prefer to keep it private and only want to use it to access the general fee waivers, that's totally okay. It does not need to be public for the general fee waiver information to go through. But let's say we want to use it. So we'll click next. And then this is where you can upload your material. So what I'm going to do now is switch over into a new writer account because I want to show you what a dashboard looks like when it's filled with different projects. So very quickly, we're going to log out and log in. This also gives us a chance to show what it looks like when you are logging in, when you already have a writer membership with us. Oh. Okay, let me try one more time. Otherwise, we'll go back to the other one. There we go. Okay. So here's an example of what a completed writer's dashboard looks like. So this means that you've uploaded at one point or another these 5 different projects. Now, if you look over into the left-hand side of the dashboard, we call this the navigation panel. You can see that each of these projects are either offline or listed. So these are different hosting statuses. We have 3 different hosting statuses. I'll get into that later. But just as kind of a way to eyeball what that is, what it looks like. All right, so let's say we want to add a project. So you'll see this is exactly the same as when you're onboarding as a writer. We've got a TV pilot, and let's say that we want to list it. So this just means that you aren't required to upload a PDF, and you'll still be able to enter all of the information, and the information will be added to your dashboard, and it will be searchable for industry members, but that PDF won't be included in it, so they won't be able to read it. We're going to click next. All right. So we're going to call this the test. We're going to enter our description here. The pilot logline isn't necessary, but I always think more information is really useful here. We're going to say this is a limited series, and it is an hour long. So your writer's name is already signed in. If you have a writer partner for a specific project, you can add their name here, and anything that you put in this writer attribution category here will be connected to the project anywhere that exists on the site. So if I had, let's say Shelby, who worked on this with me, I can attach her name to it, and anywhere that this project is, it'll be there. If I have representation, it's automatically added here. If I have selected to make that universal across the site, and then extended visibility, the default is yes. You can change this at any point. So let's choose some genres. So now we're going to start getting into tags and all of the good kind of metadata about your project that helps make it searchable. For genres, you're allowed to pick up to 2 and only up to 2 parent genres. So that's going to be animation, action, comedy. So those are the parent genres. Within those, we have multiple different subgenres. Within your selected parent genres, you can choose as many subgenres as you like, as are appropriate for your project. So let's say this one is kind of like an action adventure, but it's maybe got a little bit of like a comedy thriller angle as well. So you can see I could choose all of these, even though they're not appropriate, but I can't add this. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, you know, if you're working with a mixed genre project, this might not encapsulate everything that your project is really hoping to accomplish. We would recommend just choosing the things that are most appropriate and like most relevant. The next is tags. So we, as Shelby was saying, we have hundreds and hundreds of tags that you can choose to be associated with your project to help make it more searchable. You have to choose at least 3, but you cannot choose more than 25. It can be a little daunting to feel like you've got to choose fully 25. I think 10 is a great number. 25 also great, but the thing that I really encourage is to think about how someone who hasn't heard about your specific project and who doesn't know you, how would they find your project? How would you describe it? How would someone else describe this project? So let's see, if like for types of characters, if maybe a doctor walks in one scene to say, oh yes, hold up like the x-ray, yes, the leg is broken. You don't need to choose a doctor tag because someone who's looking for a project for the doctor probably wants that doctor to be either like a lead or a secondary character and maybe set in the healthcare or medical industry. So let's say this is about a mother and son relationship. That it's about empowerment, pursuit, and there's a bit of running. Why not? For eras, you must select at least one, but up to 3. The present's hanging out down there at the bottom, so we're going to choose present day. And then locations. You do need to select 1, but you can go up to 5. Particularly with locations, I really suggest just choosing the ones that are the most relevant for your project. Like, what are the core locations? So we also have a couple options down here for like human habitats. If your project happens fully in a hotel room for the entire thing, click single and contained location. That is great for industry members to know. If you've got maybe like a brief dream sequence or something where a character sees themselves in purgatory, that's maybe less necessary. In general, this is an incomplete list of options. What we're trying to encapsulate for our industry members is the things that are most likely to be searched for or kind of like requested to be seen. So we'll choose self-contained and USA. And then rounding this out, the area of tags is our content advisory. We introduced this in the last year because we wanted to have an additional step in our reader matching process. So we match readers to projects based on a number of factors. One is the format. So readers who are evaluating screenplays specifically have experience in the industry providing coverage on screenplays. So if a reader did not have that experience, they would not be assigned a screenplay. So we match based on format. We also match based on genre experience and preference. So folks that prefer reading comedy but hate horror, they'll be able to note that in their reader profile. So they won't get those horror scripts. And then the content advisory makes sure that the content of your project is matched with a reader who's also going to be excited to read it. Because in our opinion, that makes the best evaluation when a reader is able to approach it kind of like with full curiosity. This stays fully internal. We don't use this in the search database. So industry members do not see this. This is not used for censorship of any kind. This is really just to match your project with a reader who can give it their full attention and curiosity and really engage with it. If, however, your project doesn't contain any of these things, you'd select that. And then the final thing is add character. Like Shelby was saying, this is a super important element to add if you've got the time. So let's see. Let's add our Clara Thompson. She's a lead. She's a woman. She's South Asian. Let's say that she starts at 26 and she ends at 26 because this movie does not go over multiple years. And a quick description here. And there is a word limit, so I would need to edit that. We can save that. You could continue adding characters. You don't need to add characters for every single character, but particularly the leads and any important, maybe secondary characters. Very good to have here. And then your final step, you will list the project. So now what you're seeing here is your project page. And I know I'm saying the word project a lot, but that just means that I'm talking about any written material that you as a writer can upload to the site. So that includes screenplays, that includes pilots, both half-hour and hour-long, theater plays and musicals, and novel-length fiction manuscripts. So all of those projects can be uploaded to the site in your writer dashboard. And now we can see. So this is all of the information that we added. If you ever want to edit any of that information, you can do so from the Edit Project tab, and it's all here. So everything that we just did, you can update that and tweak it at any point once it's been saved. If you do make any changes here, do make sure you scroll down and update it so that you save anything that you change. If you have evaluations, they will be here under the View Evaluations tab. And I believe we can see that in one of them. Let's go back to the dashboard. Yes, okay, so Echoes has got 2 evaluations. So you'd be able to look at that right here. If you had a pending evaluation, you'd have a little notification bar there letting you know. Like Shelby was saying, you can also choose to make this public or private. If it's public, then industry members can see the content of the evaluation. If it's not, they won't be able to see the content, but they will be able to see that overall score. That is kind of universal across the site. And then if you're curious what it looks like on the project page side, just because you want to double check. So now you're seeing it the way that an industry member would see it. You can see they'd be able to view the evaluations, but because we haven't made them public, they don't show up here. I think I might take this moment to talk a little bit about the different hosting statuses. So there are 3 major hosting statuses for your project on the blacklist. One of them is listed, one is offline, and one is online. So online is the only hosting status that has a recurring monthly fee. So basically, every month, if your project is online for that month, you're going to be charged $30. We really do not recommend that you keep a project online every single month throughout the year. We recommend that you be really strategic about when your projects are online and like how you're using that month, right? You can change the hosting status at any time. So if it's online and you want to take it offline, either to maybe work on some minor revisions, or you're just kind of taking a pause on how you're trying to promote that project, you can take your project offline at any point. You can list it at any point, and you can bring it back online at any point. So with this project, if we wanted to bring it online, we would activate it, and I'd need to upload something. So let's see. This is TV, great. So we need to upload a PDF. Let's update the project. When you upload a revision, I also suggest that you double check to make sure you uploaded the correct PDF. So we'll be able to, let's see, activate it. Right, there we go. So now that the project is online and the PDF is successfully uploaded, we can double check that it's the right PDF by clicking on that link there. Great. Okay, perfect. And I know, yes, that's the right one. And just to kind of demo how easy it is to take it offline, you can hit suspend right here, and that will suspend hosting. So now this project is offline. It's just that easy. If you wanted to list it, now you can list it from here. If you want to bring it back online, you'll hit unsuspend. So let's do that very quickly. For kind of engaging with the various programs that we offer, once you're signed in, you can access that straight from your dashboard. So again, this is kind of your dashboard at like a resting state when you log in. And let's go look at my programs. So this is every program that is currently open on the blacklist. You can scroll down and see all of these. The bay list is right up top. So I'll show you how this works. I do suggest that you read all the program kind of requirements and eligibility criteria. To submit a project to any of our programs, it will need to meet the criteria for that program and then also our universal site requirements, which means it has to be online at the time you submit it, and it needs to have at least one pending or completed evaluation. That said, once it's been successfully submitted, you do not need to keep it online for the entire submission window of the program. Once it's online, we've got it like stored on our side, and it's safe and good to go. If at any time you update the PDF for the project that you submitted to a program, it also automatically updates the information stored on our end. So I know that sometimes there's a little bit of confusion around how long you have to keep a project online, and it's really just long enough if you're only interested in submitting to a program, just long enough to get that evaluation and then submit it. Because again, we really don't want you just sending tons and tons of monthly fees while you're waiting around. So the Bay List, you can either request a fee waiver or just go straight into the submission portal. Again, for this program, there's a limited number of fee waivers. So like Sam was saying, we encourage that if you do have the financial means to purchase an evaluation on your own and cover hosting on your own, that you do that to ensure that we're able to save fee waivers for the folks that need it to be able to participate. So if you click on add a submission, this is going to show you any project in your dashboard that's eligible. So the test is showing up as eligible because it's online. So if I wanted to submit it, there goes this. And then because the Bay List asks the additional step of clarifying what your close tie to the Bay Area is, you'll have this space there to kind of give us a little bit more information. You want to make sure that you've clicked yes, and then you'd save the submission. I do suggest that you write something in the qualifications area. It's very helpful for us to do so. It helps us really get a sense of who you are. So the more that you can kind of share there, the better it is on our end. Perfect. So if you're able to see the to be considered notification that comes up, because I don't have an evaluation connected to this project, I'm not able to go through with this submission. So even though it's online, I still have to meet the other requirement of having an evaluation. So that is something that then I'd say, okay, we could buy an evaluation. So to purchase an evaluation, you'd choose among any of your projects that are online. If you don't see your project listed in this drop-down menu, it's probably because it's not online. It's either offline or listed. And again, you can always verify the hosting status by looking at that left-hand navigation panel. And then you'd select how many evaluations you'd like. You want to make sure you acknowledge this. One of the things that is important to note is that once you purchase an evaluation, or if you've got a fee waiver request out, once that fee waiver gets approved, your project is immediately matched with a reader. So it's really, really important that your project is ready to be read and your PDF is like the latest draft, the draft that you want evaluated when you move to either purchase an evaluation or apply for a fee waiver. If we were going to do this, we would just purchase it right here. All right. I'm going to change my hosting status really quickly. And trying to think, we went through tags, evaluations, program opt-in. We can very quickly kind of go through what you've got available in your profile menu. So much like industry members, you also have the ability to save favorites and create collections. These are also shareable, by the way, so you can share a link directly to any list that you create. Your profile settings, a lot of this is pretty straightforward. Again, this can all be updated at any point. You just want to make sure that you kind of always scroll down to the bottom of the page to hit that save button. Your representation can be updated, accomplishments, social memberships, privacy. So from your writer dashboard and in this drop-down profile menu, this privacy option kind of controls the whole ecosystem of your writer profile and all the projects that you have connected to that profile. So whatever you have here is going to supersede any of the privacy settings that you have for an individual project. So if you want to have kind of like different privacy settings across your projects, I suggest making your profile privacy settings on the kind of most open side, and then really tailoring more or less privacy for each of those projects, depending on what you have, or like what your intentions are for that project. Because, for example, if the only, let's say that the default, right, is to disallow reading by other member writers. So that means that only industry members would have access to that PDF. But then if we wanted the test to be available to everyone, even if I suggested, even if I selected public, it would still only default to the settings in the profile menu. So just, that's really getting into the weeds of privacy stuff. But just as a heads up, you do have a lot of options to really, really personalize your privacy settings. Beyond that, we've got a super robust FAQ. And top lists, I believe Shelby already went over those. Yeah, I think probably at this point, we're a little over the hour mark. It might make sense for me to stop sharing, and then we can just start getting into questions.
Thank you, Lillian.
Yeah, thanks, y'all.
So I was just looking at the Q&A bucket. One thing I do want to say, I wanted to echo Lillian's comments about, once you upload your script and send it for an evaluation, it is going to be assigned pretty much immediately. I know that there's an expectation, I think probably set by the screenwriting contest world, but also just when you send your work to anybody in Hollywood, that maybe they'll get to it in a month or two. The average turnaround time on Blacklist film and television film scripts and television pilots right now is 4.5 days. And the average turnaround for novels is just under 9 days, I believe. So make sure you're uploading the right draft, because there won't be an opportunity to switch it out even in 24 hours, because it is going to get assigned to someone who may start reading it immediately. There were two other questions that I saw in the Q&A box. One was about, are readers who read for the Blacklist allowed to have a writer profile and submit? The answer is yes, they are. Obviously, they cannot be assigned their own work to evaluate, because that would be ridiculous. And if, God forbid, someone tried to run game like that, they'd obviously be summarily fired immediately. So that's that. There's another question about whether we have data around the best times of the year to have a project online. I think it's a really interesting question, because I'm a bit of a data wonk. The honest answer is no, there aren't really best times to have your project hosted. I'll be honest and say that there's a slight dip in downloads at 3 times during the year if I look at the last year of Blacklist data. So there was a slight dip right around the Cannes Film Festival in mid-May of 2024. There's a slow sort of recession of industry professional download volume right before Labor Day, which is right around the time that a lot of people in the industry on summer vacation, right before everybody comes back to school and goes right into Toronto Film Festival. And then obviously, unsurprisingly, in late December, when people are off for the winter holidays, there's less downloads. But I want to be clear, that doesn't mean there are no downloads. Like, people are reading around the year, around the clock, because everyone's looking for good material always, and you may be stuck on a layover, at your uncle's house, who knows, and they want something good to read, and you may go look for it on the Blacklist website. And so people are even downloading things on Christmas Day, on New Year's Eve. Like, there's no best time. One thing I did discover when I was going through the data, just to answer this question, right now, like literally over the last week, there's more downloads on the Blacklist site by industry professionals than there have been since mid-June of last year. Don't know what to make of that. Didn't necessarily realize it was happening, but I think it speaks to the unpredictability of when people are looking for good things. I think it's also worth noting that, like, I would not target, like, have a broad strategy of trying to get everybody to download my work. What you need is the one person who is going to love it to download it. And again, in an ideal world, if you uploaded your work and got feedback and the feedback was really positive, you're going to be hosting for free anyway. And so it doesn't even make sense to necessarily strategically decide when to host it, because it's at no additional cost to you at that stage.
Thank you so much, Franklin. I'm going to feed you some of these amazing questions people have been putting in the chat. We have Kate Purnell. Apologies if I get anyone's name wrong. Apologies. I have so much respect for you. Don't have the great pronunciations. Are you allowed to only submit one submission total, or can you submit multiple fields, idea pilot and a manuscript all at the same time? And I'm going to go from what Lillian said. That sounds like a yes. Lillian, do you want to make sure that I'm correct on that?
You were correct. Whatever you want to submit. Okay,
great. And I have a question from Courtney about, are there writing groups with prospective writers that are supported by the Blacklist or the Bay List? Where can people workshop projects with other writers before they submit their work? I can answer from the Bay List side, but if you want to take a first answer for that, go ahead.
We don't have what I would think of as writing workshops or sort of writers groups. I think that, you may find other writers. I know of at least one writer group that sort of began from a writer who had their work hosted on the site, who then went looking for people who were in a similar genre as them, who had roughly the same scores. And they sort of reached out to them via the site and said, hey, we all need to improve our work a little bit. Can we do like a Zoom writers group, right? So the Blacklist doesn't support those in any official capacity. We do have 3 labs. One is for writers of episodic work, so television basically, that we do with women in film. That's for women and underrepresented genders. We have 2 feature labs, one that is for writers who intend to direct their work, and one that is for writers who intend to sort of sell their work and have somebody else direct it, sort of a filmmakers lab and a pure writers lab, a projects lab, if you will. Applications, the episodic lab is in process at the moment. That deadline is passed, but the 2 feature labs, the application I believe is open till early June. And if you go to blacklist.com/programs, you'll see the information about how to apply for that there.
Amazing. And then from the Bay List side, I will say that Rafael Casal and Debbie Dix have hosted these salons for the last few years. We started them in 2020. From each of the salons, a lot of writing groups have been formed. We announced the Bay List with Franklin in July at one of our last salons, and there will be another one later this month or next month. We're going to be looking at when we can have them up. Pay attention to the Bay List and Rafael Casal's Instagram, and we'll post, hey, there's a salon. They're open. There's no barrier to entry other than like how many people we can fit into a salon. And it's a really great way to form writers groups. Franklin said something really interesting at that about don't pay his website until you've exhausted all of your free evaluations. And so we really encourage these sort of groups to work and workshop each other's work together, get it to the best place before you pay your $30, before you submit to the Bay List. You don't want to get on there until you know this is your place. And I will say that we did get a question submitted early on about, is there, like, how do you know when your screenplay is done? At what point do you stop revising and say, okay, this is it? And from a writer's perspective, I am not a writer, so I will not answer that. But we have this really cool guy who helped found the Bay List with Franklin, who decided had a moment to jump on and surprise everyone. So I will let Rafael introduce himself.
Hey.
Well, he needs no introduction.
What up?
And say, how do you know, Rafa, when your script is done and ready to pitch and submit?
Hey everybody, my name is Rafael. Tagging along with Franklin on creating the Bay List. How do I know when a script is ready? It's never ready. It's never ready. But you can never work on it too long. All you really need to do is pace yourself on the rewrites, so a healthy amount of time away from the script will give you some perspective on it. So do a rewrite, don't come back every day, take a couple of days off, take a week off, think about some of the big questions, the big concerns, come back, read it again. And if you feel that it could be better, it could. And you should do everything in your power to make it better. There's never a place where you need to get to where you're like, well, I'll wait for the producers that'll want to come on to give me that note, or I'll wait for it's you. You're the executive producer. You're the person who will need to instill confidence in anyone who's gonna want to fund this thing that you're making. And so if you are aware that it could be better, it's your responsibility to make it so. So just give yourself the best tools to do that, which is not standing over it day in and day out, but put in a good half a day writing, take a break, take a walk, hang out with some other people, try to explain your screenplay to people who've never heard anything about it and see where you get tripped up. That's a good one. Just walk somebody through the story, and when they start looking at you with those confused, glazed over eyes, fix that part. But do everything that you can. Some people feel like just going on Google and searching what's a way to do another pass on my script, or how do I look up structure of this kind of movie, or can I find the script for this movie that my script is kind of like to compare and contrast? Most of the information that most people think is locked behind closed doors at some great film institution is absolutely in the top 5 search results on Google. And so, just don't think that anything is unavailable to you. The internet has made filmmaking quite easy. It's just about asking the right questions.
Amazing.
I agree with all of that. I just want to put an excellent, emphasize what I said, Sam, in that session, and just say it to everyone here, which is, look, when you submit to the blacklist, there are costs associated with it. There are costs associated with hosting. There's a cost associated with feedback. Do not give me, us, the blacklist, your money until you've exhausted all of the resources at your disposal to make the script as good as humanly possible. And I'll explain it, I'll illustrate why. If you know going in, like Rafa said, I can probably fix that, but I'll wait till a producer tells me to fix it. If you know going in that there's a problem with it, and you upload your script, you pay $30 to host it, you pay $100 to get the screenplay feedback, and then your feedback comes back with a score that you're disappointed about, and one of the weaknesses that is mentioned is exactly the thing that you knew was a weakness, you're not going to have a good day. You're not going to feel good about that experience, and it's your own fault at that point because you knew it was a problem and you didn't try to fix it. So we'll take your money. If you've got money like that and you're just looking for feedback, fair play. But my strong advice is to exhaust all of the free feedback, all of the resources that you have at your disposal to make it absolutely as good as possible before you pay money for in support of your script to anybody, whether it's the blacklist, Nickel Fellowship, wherever it is. If you're spending money in support of your screenplay, make sure you're not putting good money after bad. Put your best work out there if you're going to put it out there at all.
I'll give everybody just a tangible thing that you can use that is maybe more cost effective and time sensitive for your scripts. It's really hard because I know it's really hard to get people to read your script and give you feedback. It's a lot easier to get people to read an outline, a short run through of the story, and to get a fellow writer who doesn't have time to read your 90-page or 110-page scripts, and give you, earnest notes all the way through. And then quite frankly, not many of us even know enough people who know enough about scripts to get the kind of feedback that we're talking about. But if you can sit down and write a 5-pager of what your script is about, which I strongly suggest before you even get into script mode is to write the 5-pager and the 25-pager outlines, those people have a lot more experience reading. It's a dialogueless short story. We all have read those before, whether in school or recreationally or whatever. And you can ask the broad questions like, did I lose you anywhere? Were you confused about characters? When what we've done on projects before is we come up with our little questionnaire sheet that's anonymous so people can be honest. Say, who's your favorite character? Who's your least favorite character? Did you understand the ending? Did you understand the beginning? What did you think this film was trying to say? All those things are things that people can answer in a few questions, and you will glean a lot of information. And while that may seem like overdoing it, I always remind people that when you're writing a feature, you're asking for millions of dollars. Do the work. Do the work to make people confident in that investment. And while the blacklist that's not the job here. The job is not to get you, necessarily financed. The job is to hopefully get you some visibility and confidence around your script. But in order to do that, it does, to Franklin's point, need to score well. This is the review process here is the way that the scripts eventually will get ranked. And so you don't want to find out your script has a problem through this process. You want to do that on your own and build your own system to do it, mostly because this probably will be the only time you need this system. And so if it's the first time you're going through this, build it now so you can use it for the next 10, 15, 20 years. The same people who read my first script I ever wrote are reading the ones that I'm writing right now. These are my trusted kinfolk.
I'll just add to that. I think it's one of the things that I've actually been most impressed with about Rafa's crew, but also just the Bay in general. Finding your community of, like, network laterally. Find your people who are trying to figure this stuff out at the same time and work together to elevate everybody's game. Because those are the people that you're going to be working with in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. And having that community is really critical, not just to make your work better, but also because you need people that, like, when you have a bad meeting, to come out of a meeting and hop in the group chat and be like, you would not believe what just happened, right? This is a hard life that we've all chosen, and you need people in order to get through it.
Amen to that. We have some very base specific questions for you, Rafa. Saida says, can you talk a little bit about the 2025 Baylist competition and what makes a script stand out to readers, and how much of the script do they actually read? I can take a little bit of that if you want.
I can take it from the Blacklist side.
Yeah, I think Franklin should hit that one in terms of, like,
yeah.
process.
When you pay for feedback on the Blacklist website, we expect our readers to read your entire script. And if you have any indication in your feedback that they did not read the entire script, you should contact customer support. That is literally what it's there for. And it's one of the things that differentiates the Blacklist from every screenwriting competition out there. But yeah, when you pay your $100, you deserve a full reading of your screenplay. And on the Blacklist, you will get one. And if you don't, we'll make it right. That's kind of the shortest answer. What makes it stand out? What makes any screenplay stand out? What makes any movie stand out? I think it varies by person. Like I said at the top, like, on some level, art is fundamentally subjective. There is not, our readers do not have a checkbox that they're going, like a list of checkbox, and did the writer do this? Did the writer do this? We ask them to rate scripts on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how likely they would be to recommend this work to peer or superior in the industry. What we're trying to capture is that experience that we all know when you leave a movie and it's amazing, and the first thing you do when you get out of the movie theater is you want to talk about it and you want to tell everybody you know, oh my God, I just saw somebody great. That's what we want the experience to be in script form. And conversely, if it's a 1, you may hop out of a movie and say, you know what? I wouldn't wish this on my greatest enemy. I would tell my greatest enemy, I still hate you, but human to human, don't watch this movie. That's really what we're trying to capture.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is this indie filmmaker I really like, Jim Cummings, said this thing in an interview that I repeat all the time, which is, don't assume the audience's interest. And I think my big note for writers is not to assume that anyone cares. So make sure every page counts. Make sure there's no filler, or it's not for just a very particular niche group on page 3, but that anyone can find their way into this story, and that you pull everyone in along for the ride. Sometimes people wait a little long to give a reason to be reading the script, and that can be the death of a script that otherwise is great as a bad start.
Yeah, and to just specifically address the Baylist side, I will say that we're going to be using the Blacklist system that they use to find the top 30, and that's going to be through their rating system, and they can jump in if there's more detail around that. Those 30 scripts are going to be given to the Baylist and their partners, and 10 will be selected from that. So that's how the top 10 are going to get picked. The first top 30 are through the Blacklist system, and the top 10 are by our partners. But that doesn't mean you should write to who our partners are. Write the best script possible. Write what is the best for yours, and they will evaluate based on that. So that is my question about that. I also see that Basa has a question about the Baylist and saying he noticed the language of new generation. And does that mean that you have to be younger or have close? And what exactly does close ties to the Bay Area mean? Also, does it need to be set here or inspired by the Bay?
Yes. new generation just means, you know, a voice that we haven't heard yet. I could care less about what age anyone is. I think that in terms of the relationship to the Bay, I mean, look, the blacklist exists and it's not site specific, whereas the Bay list is site specific. And so I would just think about why you're specifically submitting to this list. And if it's because you're from this place and you feel otherwise unseen by the LA industry, great. That's what this list is for. If you have a story that's specifically about the Bay Area, great. That's what this list is for. There's a section in the application for the Bay list that gives you a chance to sort of contextualize why you picked this list. That's what that space is for. And we'll take it into consideration. But, you know, the big thing about this is that it's supposed to lift up the Bay Area film scene. And so if you feel as though you are a part of that scene, you know, I'm not going to argue with you. This is not us sitting around in a bar somewhere in the East Bay, you know, debating whether or not, you know, Pleasanton is the Bay. This is
those fights are for other venues.
Those fights are for other moments. If you feel like you have a relationship to this place that we call home, by all means, no one's going to try to take that from you or dock you points if you're, you know, if you're from Montclair versus Oakland. Like by all means, rock hard with your Montclair self.
Exactly. And we use the language close ties to the Bay, very specifically aware that a lot of people who are from the Bay can no longer afford to live in the Bay, right? So you do not have to actively have a Bay residence at this exact moment to have close ties. You do need to explain what your close ties are. So we will leave that in your discretion. So this is a question for the Blacklist folks. As a writer looking to also produce other people's work, can you set up a profile as both a writer and an industry professional? I'm sorry, an industry profile if you're using different email addresses.
Shelby, do you want to talk a little bit about what the requirements are for industry professionals?
Yes. If you do qualify to be an industry member, you can have both an industry membership and a writer membership. You do need to use different emails for both of those accounts. To qualify for industry membership, you have to, at the core of it, you have to be able to materially advance the career of the writers on our site, you know, in a material way. That's what we ask of the industry members on our site. So whether you are a manager who can represent someone, whether you are an assistant to an executive at a studio who can go into their boss's office and say, this is an amazing project, we should, you know, look at this. You know, we accept those people. So it depends what kind of category you're applying in. There are kind of different standards we look at, whether you're, you know, a representative, a director, an actor, a producer, but we have, you know, various kind of things that we look at for anyone who's applying to be an industry member. But basically at the heart of it, we want to make sure that you can, in your day-to-day business, advance the career of the people that we have on the site, and that they will be, you know, happy if you contact them about their work.
Yeah. And so that means, like, if you've produced a movie and it played a major festival, you're good, you're in. If you're a writer who wants to produce other people's work, but you've never produced a feature film, you're not going to get approved for industry membership. You'll still have access to all of the scripts via the site that writers have made available to other writers. And so you can find work that you may want to produce, but we're only giving industry access to people who are, as part of their day-to-day jobs, working in the industry and have validated the fact that they can substantively advance a writer's project or career.
Amazing. And then we have a great question from Omari about a little more detail about what it's like for the writer to receive feedback. How do they get those notes on a particular screen? Is it like a Google Doc? How do they see the general evaluations from those who are evaluating?
Lillian, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so when you have an evaluation, it shows up right in your writer dashboard. When we demoed earlier in that project page, you have a tab that says evaluation. So it's going to be any evaluation that you have connected to that project, that is where it lives. So you're able to go back and reference it at any time. In terms of the specifics there, it is definitely not like traditional coverage. So our readers have a pretty brief space with which to give feedback, and it is really like a very specific type of feedback. And as Franklin mentioned earlier, it's the type of feedback that is geared toward how industry members might receive your project in its current form in the market today. So it's quite a high bar. And that's the perspective that the readers are going to bring to it, which is also part of why it's so important that anybody in your network that you have, that you can workshop this project with, that you can get notes on, that you do all of that before the process of the evaluation. Because that's the kind of insight that our readers are asked to provide. It's really industry specific for the market type of feedback. How is it going to fare in the industry today? In terms of the actual content, we recently shared on Instagram a couple examples of strong evaluations and that the writers themselves felt was really useful. So if you're curious to kind of like really get into the nitty-gritty of the type of feedback that is supplied, I definitely encourage you to look there. But basically, our readers are asked to give their version of a logline, provide a paragraph of strengths, a paragraph of weaknesses, and a paragraph of kind of their thoughts on its current industry prospects. And I know we spend a lot of time talking about like the high scores and what happens for the high scores, but I do think it's worth saying that particularly on our site, like a 5 is a strong score. Like a 5 is like this is a good solid script with potential. Like this means that this reader is looking at it and saying, okay, there's something there. Like do more. It needs like more work. But to me, I find a 5 really promising. I really find like those projects that I've got like a 5 and a 6, to me, that's interesting. There's something there. And it indicates that the industry might be interested in kind of digging in.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Lillian. Okay, we have some questions about beginner writers and sort of what books or what kind of references that you both, Franklin and Rafael, would recommend for people who are looking to learn more. There was a specific call out to Kill the Dog. I don't know if you want to address that, Franklin, or skip past it. But just generally, like if they're beginners or if they have great stories and are looking for resources, where would you direct them?
Yeah, I think the best advice I've ever heard about how to become a screenwriter actually comes from a gentleman named Scott Myers, who's the official screenwriting blogger of the Blacklist. I actually invited him to sort of be part of the Blacklist family because I just really admired how he approached telling people how to write. And the way that he tells people to write: read scripts, watch movies, write pages. That is going to be your best education. There are lots of gurus out there that have written books that wrote one movie and decided to write these books so that they could sort of, bring in money. And by the way, if you want to read those books, read those books. If you want to read Save the Cat, read Save the Cat. If you want to read Robert McKee's story, read Robert McKee's story. If you want to read Poetics by Aristotle, read Poetics by Aristotle. The goal is to take whatever you can from all of those different sort of teachers and develop your own process that allows you to write as well as you possibly can, right? And so I have nothing negative to say about any screenwriting teacher if they help somebody figure out how to write better. But I would advise against taking any method as law unless it's one that you create for yourself. And then it's almost certainly going to be a hybrid of what a bunch of people tell you to do. But truly, the best advice I've ever read or seen, and I think it's what I would sort of read scripts, watch movies, write pages.
Yeah, all I'll add is if you go to the baylist.org, there's 5 or 6 Instagram accounts that I linked to on there that I think give pretty decent screenwriting advice. To Franklin's point, I don't think there's any master or guru out there that is the right person to teach you structure. I think a lot of screenwriting is pattern recognition, which means just you are taking in a lot of scripts, you are watching a lot of films, with an eye towards when things are happening and why things are happening. And so it's best to watch movies that you've already seen a few times because you're watching them a little more studiously. The biggest thing I'll say though, that I think is somewhat universal is when you're writing, learning how to outline is really, really hard for some folks because we want to write dialogue and we want to write scenes. And if you want to write scenes, just write the scene. But outlining and building the folktale version or the allegory version of your idea will help you see the plot holes much easier than once you're in the shit of 100 pages and you start to feel lost. It's just a big maze once you have that many pages and that much story. But if you start small and sort of build the small model of your movie and then build the like room size model and then finally build the full size, you'll really have a sense of the structure and architecture of your world that you've built. And it'll save you some of the grief of not being able to distinguish between an idea not ever being able to work, an idea just not working right now because you haven't cracked it. And those things really make a big difference. An exercise that I use a lot is if I can tell my movie idea like a folk story or like a Bible story or like some old Testament, kind of sounding thing, and it works. Like a wizard walks into an unknown place and does whatever. If I can do that version and it feels compelling and interesting, then when I start putting the specifics of how I would tell the story on it, I know that the bones of it work because it worked in its simplest form.
One other thing I'll add, there's a lot of sort of screenwriting books, and even there's a lot of jargon, right? People talk about an inciting incident and a 3-act structure and a 5-act structure and blah, 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 blah. A lot of that stuff is just a term that somebody slapped on an idea so that they could talk about it more easily, right? 3-act structure is a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's all it is, right? An inciting incident is basically something cool that happens at the beginning of your movie so people keep reading or watching, right? So I would say just don't be intimidated by, if you don't know the lingo, don't worry about it. Oftentimes, and I still do this, and I've been working in this business for 22 years, when people use the jargon, I would just say point blank, what do you actually mean by that? And just ask them to explain the concept behind the term, because one of two things will happen. Either they'll explain the concept behind the term and then you'll understand it, or they'll realize they can't actually explain the concept and they'll look silly for using jargon that they can't explain. So, yeah.
I love that. So we're getting close to time. So if anyone has questions that they've been holding, please put them in the question and answer, not the chat. Question and answer below. I will not see it in the chat. But while we have this moment, is there anything that you want to make sure that writers who are submitting for the Bay List, some of them are new screenwriters and been holding stories close to their chest for years and this has given them a moment to like, no, I need to actually write this. What is your advice to writers who are both beginners, but also just like, what does this opportunity mean to you and why are you doing it?
Rafa, you want to go first on that one, or should I jump in?
You got something, go for it. I'm thinking about it.
I mean, it's funny. Rafa and I talked a little bit about this when I was last in the Bay on stage. Go big. There's nothing more frustrating than cracking open. I can say a few things. When you open page 1 of the script, and I use open because I'm old enough that I started reading scripts in printed form. But like when you pop up the Kindle or the iPad or the laptop or the phone or whatever you're reading, I can promise you that every single person, when they get to page 1, they are hoping that it's amazing. It's like unwrapping a gift. You want it to be great. You are rooting for that person to take you on a journey that you've never seen before. And there is part of the reason why people are so sort of dour about reading scripts is because most of the time, writers don't. And even worse, they don't try to. They try to give you something roughly as good as the worst movie that came out last year, right? So, and then their perspective is, well, I wrote something that's at least as good as this bad movie, so why don't I have a career as a screenwriter? right? And it's important to remember that even to get to the worst movie ever, there was probably a decent script at the beginning that millions of decisions resulted in the movie not being quite as good as the screenplay, right? So be ambitious, be wildly ambitious, so that when I read something, I am, oh my God, I can't believe I'm reading this from page 1 to page 100 or 90 or 120, whatever it is. I can't flip the pages fast enough because I'm just so excited to find out what happens next. And I'm really sad that I can't spend more time with these characters in this world when the script is over. Because that's the thing that's going to make me, when I finish the script, say, oh my God, I have to tell everybody about this. Another way to think about it is this. There are at most a few hundred writers that get into the Writers Guild every year. Like, and by a few hundred, I mean like 200, like low single digit hundreds. That's rough. Like, that's less than the number of people that get drafted into the NFL, the number of people that get drafted into Major League Baseball, the number of people that make their debut playing professional soccer in the top 5 leagues in the world. We all know how good you have to be functioning at that level in sports, or as an astronaut, or in the Navy SEALs. I think there are actually more Navy SEALs sort of established every year than there are screenwriters that enter the WGA for writing a feature screenplay. We know how good you have to be to do that. We know how hard those people had to work to have that opportunity. Don't undermine yourself by not putting in the work to be as good as you can be and to write a script as good as it can be by just saying, oh, it's fine. I'm going to write this thing. It's not going to make anybody feel anything. So that's one. Second piece of advice I'd say is that art is an emotional medium. It is not, yes, it's about plot, but what you're trying to do is make people feel. And again, I think we all know, if we think about the movies we love them because they made us feel a kind of way about other people, about ourselves, about the world, about what it means to be alive. And if you can put people in their feelings and then take them even further, those are the kind of things that make people sit up and pay attention. So make sure that the writing that you're doing is likely to inspire a human emotional reaction. It's what makes art special. It's what makes being human special. So those are the two things. And then lastly, don't give us your money until you put your best foot forward.
Good ass two things. All right, one. How you come about your idea is entirely up to you. Some people have like a world that comes to them first. Some people have a character that comes to them first. Some people have a general sort of inspired story that comes to them first. Like, how you drop in is up to you. Like, eventually you have to fill in all of the sides of it, but what you should be drilling down to before you start writing, I think, and again, this isn't law, this is just my opinion, which, like, again, there's a million ways to get into this. I like to really get down to my why until I know why I'm telling the story on like a base code level, and since some people here may have seen Blind Spotting, which is the one that we did about the Bay, the tone map for it was, we're going to write a comedy in a world that won't let it be one. That was our framework. We're going to be as funny as we can until we can't be funny anymore. But the story is really just about two brothers who have to learn how to talk to each other about something that has come up between them, and how hard that is through sort of the way in which they were raised. And so David and I always wanted to tell him a story about friendship, and pushing through sort of this really challenging moment in both of their lives. And that's it. And so all those scenes of like reinforcing how good of friends they are, so that when they're finally pulled apart, you just want to see them become friends again, but they have to have this talk. And so we knew we wrote the talk before we wrote the rest of the movie, because we knew what that talk was. And then everything was about, how do we get these two guys to a place where they would have to have this talk together in a way that would be really meaningful. And so most of the movie is like this bromance between these two guys, and then this inciting incident of one of them seeing something that the other one doesn't see, and that's the wedge. And then the wedge cooks for 2 acts, and then it comes to a head, And then we have to resolve their friendship, and we have to resolve the inciting incident. And that's the third act. I didn't sit there and go first act, second act, third act. I just thought about what's the story of a friendship that I would really want to watch. But you got to get down to that. What is this story really, really about? And if we wanted the story to just be about, a shooting in Oakland and how the whole city reacts to it, like there's no emotional content in that. That is so bird's eye view. It had to be about Colin. It had to be about his fear. It had to be about making his friend who doesn't understand his fear understand. It had to be about us wanting to see him survive through the anxiety and the PTSD of what he was going through. Everything else is context and cosmetic. We could have done that whole movie in 4 locations, and budgetarily, I wish we had. But, those are the things that you add on to just make it interesting and make it fun. But the story is small. Like the story of that movie is so small. And I think if you look at a lot of the movies that you love, there's a small version and a big version always. And it's great when they have budget, and the big version is wonderful. And, congratulations to the people who get the $150 million budget. But the big movies that work and the small movies that work have something in common. It's a little itty bitty story about being human in some way. And that's what I would just cross-check your script for. Like, is this about the human experience? And am I expressing the part of the human experience that I'm interested in? Because if you are interested in it, we're going to be interested in it.
Amazing. So we're coming into our last few minutes, and we have a very technical question. If we're submitting to the Bay List, how long is that submission window open, and when does it close? And if we miss the submission for the Bay List, is there going to be another chance in the future?
Lillian, do you want to take the logistics question around the submissions?
Absolutely. The submission window is open until April 8th of this year. So you've got some time to kind of put things together if you still want to do some strategizing. And for the future, I'll let y'all say that.
Well, and that just means, Lillian, to be clear, people have to have their evaluation purchased by April 8th and opt in. Or
yes. Yeah. Yes, I should clarify. So yes, your project would need to be uploaded and online. So that means that you need to have a writer profile set up, and you need to have uploaded your project. And it needs to be online when you opt it in. At that moment, you do also have the option to buy an evaluation right then. So as long as you have an evaluation pending, then you will be able to successfully opt in even up until April 8th. I encourage you to do before, just in case there's a tech issue or something, particularly if you're interested in applying for a fee waiver. Keep in mind that we hand review each of those, so give yourself a little bit of cushion. But otherwise, yeah, it'll close on 8th.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Rafa, but I mean, I definitely want to do this again. We'll have to figure out the logistics of it, but all signs point to strong desire.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the Franklin and this amazing team have been doing this work for a very, very long time. This is a thing that needs to exist, and the Bay specifically, I think, is going to really see a lot of good returns off of this if everybody puts their best foot forward. And so, as you can hear, like what we want, and there's no like selfish interest here. This is purely for the culture of the Bay entirely. Like, I want the best scripts to come into this so that they can get ranked up, so that people find out about them and they get made. And that has nothing to do with me after they're on the list and they get some publicity. The goal here is to have great projects come out. And if we get, the right amount of submissions and we can get momentum behind this, like, yeah, we'll keep doing it and keep making it a resource. What I'll say is, for the folks who are wondering if they should submit this time or if they should wait till next year, just fucking do it now. I say that as a peer writer. You're always going to want to put it off. You're always going to want more time, and procrastination comes in many forms, but you have enough time to finish your script. If it's a story that's burning in your heart right now, you should put pen to paper and get it done. I understand that experience well of wanting to sort of put it off or go, I want to incubate the idea or whatever more. But if you've got it in your heart and you're excited about this and you've been putting pen to paper and you have the time to dedicate to it, it's February 5th. You got, 8 some odd weeks to finish it, put it down, pick it back up again, set some sessions with friends to go over the nuts and bolts of how the story unfolds, show people your outline, walk people through it, have coffee with a friend and talk through the whole premise and see how people get excited and put your best foot forward. And it may be the learning year where you get the feedback that makes you a better writer. It may be the year where you make the list. It may be the year where you realize you need 8 months to work on a script, but there is value in just getting to the finish line. So I would heavily encourage you as my writing peers, if you have it in you, to go hard and finish your script, because there's nothing that feels better than holding your finished script in your hand, printed from Kinko's, and being like, this is, for better or for worse, I finished my 4th, 5th, 6th draft, and here it is. It's an amazing feeling, and I want it for all of you.
Amazing. We have one, we're going to do the last 2 questions. And one is, can they expand on something that's already been written before?
I think it depends on what that means. If you own the rights to the story, then you can do what you want, right? If you wrote a short story 5 years ago and then you're adapting your own short story into a screenplay, you absolutely can submit that screenplay. If it is someone else's intellectual property that you're expanding on or adapting, then no, you can't submit it to the Blacklist website at all, much less the A-list. I hope that answers the question. I don't know. Okay.
I think it does. And then we have a very basic question about when the evaluations are coming in. I think, Lillian, you can get an evaluation at any time. You don't have to wait till April 8th, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, the best way to think about the Blacklist, y'all, is it's a sort of rolling admission to Hollywood. You can upload your work and get feedback literally whenever, right? And then from time to time, we say, hey, the Bay List submissions are open until April 8th. If you have your work hosted and you've had at least one evaluation, you can opt in. You can click a button and raise your hand and say, I'd like to be considered for this. And when that evaluation window closes, we then look at all of the data for every single script that has been opted in to that process, identify a short list, in this case, hand about 30 scripts to our partners, and then they read them and decide what ends up on the list. Or for our other partnerships, you get selected for a lab or whatever. But when you upload your work and get feedback, if you get an 8 out of 10 score, we're not going to wait to tell all of Hollywood, hey, this is a really good script. You're going to be part of that email. It's going to get circulated on that Monday to all 7,000 of our industry professional members saying, hey, everybody, this is good. You should pay attention to it. That also, whether or not you're included in those emails will not affect or positively or negatively whether you're included in the Bay List. You may upload your work, meet with a producer who loves your script, and then get on the Bay List afterwards. That is possible, right? But the idea is, as soon as we know that something's good, we're going to start telling everybody. And then there's this special thing that we're doing with Rafa and everybody else to specifically identify Bay-affiliated stuff to be celebrated as part of a collective of Bay Area stuff, so that even more focus will be on those things. I hope that makes sense. It's late.
Amazing.
The world is crazy.
It's late. The world is crazy. We really appreciate it. We had over 90 people on here tonight, which just shows the hunger out there for the stories to get told. In like a 1-minute moment, do you, Rafa, want to say anything to those who are submitting to the Bay List, or have you said what you needed to say tonight?
Said everything I want to say. I mean, I've said it in the chat too. I hope everyone submits who's got a great idea out there. Just don't let your self-doubt or the daunting task of finishing a script discourage you. We created this for you, so I hope you use it.
I'm going to say one thing.
Please.
Y'all in the Bay are very lucky to have people like Rafa, like Sam, like Issa, like this crew that goes up as hard as they do for their spot. It has been a real joy to work with everybody associated with this process, in large part because I see how hard everybody is going up for the Bay. And I just want to acknowledge that over and over and over again, because every city, every part of the world should have people that go up this hard for them. And y'all in the Bay are very lucky to have people like this.
Thank you. I agree. The Bay is the best. So I'm going to kick it to Issa to just close us out. We really appreciate everyone. I will reiterate that the baylist.org is a great resource. There's some information up there. There has been dropped in the chat the support line, support@blacklist.com. That's BLCKLST. And also keep an eye out, right? We've had questions about screenwriter groups and all of these things. I mentioned the salons. Keep your eyes out. Rafa usually posts whenever we're able to do a salon. We sort of throw it together and like I said, open the door wide open for however many capacity we can fit. So keep your eyes out. Those might be coming down the pathway. A great place to meet people and form writing groups and just connect. So I'm going to pass it to Issa from BAVC to close us out. And thank you, BAVC, for hosting this space. There will be 2 more VERSED workshops that are going to get very specific. I will let Issa get into that.
Yes, just echoing what someone just wrote in the chat. I'm feeling so energized right now. And yes, everything Franklin just said about feeling honored to be in the Bay and all of this energy. I feel like it's been a tough week and I just feel like that all got transmuted. So I'm very grateful. And I'm just putting a quick survey link. It really helps us. We definitely read all of the feedback and just try and improve every time. Like Sam mentioned, we have 2 forthcoming Baylist workshops. We don't have the details quite yet, but just make sure that you're tapped into our social media at BAVC Media. If you have any follow-up questions, I will put my info in the chat as well. We did record this and we probably will make it available. So make sure I have your email. You can message me and I'll put my email in the chat and we can send some follow-up. And I'm putting the link to the survey right now. And I will also follow up with that. So be on the lookout. We have 2 subsequent opportunities for you. And we have the survey and I'll put my info in the chat to hit me up. And yeah, keep writing. Y'all got this. I'm so excited for everybody. And thank you. Round of applause. Thank you so much for Franklin, and Rafael, and Shelby, and Sam, and Lillian, and just everybody that this is all labor of love. So thank you all. Grab some dinner, relax.
Thank you guys.
Don't turn on the news.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Bye.